Hi everyone, we are starting with a new module which is module C, and in that module the first topic that we are doing is basically classification of numbers. Now module C and D will be classified under a broader umbrella of number system or number theory, in which we will see topics like classification of numbers, HCF, LCM, divisibility, progressions, then factors, multiples, set theory, logarithms, surds and indices, remainder theorem, algebraic expression, and stuff like that. So let's start with C1 today. This is something that we have done in the school days, but just a quick revision and introduction to some new ideas also. So the first and foremost thing that we should be aware is for the number tree. So how numbers are broadly classified. So the first and foremost classification for numbers has to be either they are real numbers or they are imaginary numbers. Real numbers and imaginary numbers. Real numbers, they are defined in a very simple way. They are the ones which after squaring will give you a positive result, and they can be represented on the number line. For example, something like this. So basically all the numbers that we use in our day-to-day life for calculation purposes and solving purposes, they all come under a category of real numbers. Whereas the second part was imaginary numbers. Obviously, from the name itself, you realize that it's not the real thing, it's a hypothetical concept, and it doesn't any which ways have much application for us also. So just a quick introduction. Obviously, it has to be uh, ulta of real numbers. So after squaring, they will give you negative result. And when you think from that perspective, you will realize that we don't have any of such numbers which after squaring will give you a negative result. So imaginary numbers is a hypothetical concept. One very famous imaginary number is iota, denoted by I, which has a value of square root of -1. And when we square this I, we will have I square as only the square root sign will go off and it will still be negative only. Obviously, because there is no much application, we'll leave that here only. We will continue ahead with real numbers. Real numbers are further classified into two types. One is rational numbers and one is irrational numbers. One is rational numbers, one is irrational numbers. Let's see each one of them in detail. Rational numbers are the ones, they are defined in a very simple way. The ones that can be expressed in a fraction format, which is a p by q format, as long as q is not equal to 0, the denominator part should not be equal to 0. Any numbers which can be categorized like this or can be expressed like this will come under the category of rational numbers. Whereas obviously irrational numbers are the ones that you cannot express in a p by q format, and they are called as irrational numbers. Then we will further start with rational. Rational can be further classified into two types, integers and fractions. And integers, what are integers? Obviously, integers, one simple definition of that is numbers without decimal. Numbers without decimal. Three words you have to remember and you are good to go. It can be positive, it can be negative, it can be anything, as long as it is not in decimal. As long as it is not in decimal, that is all integers. Now, decimal parts, decimals are further classified into two broader classifications, terminating decimals and non-terminating decimals. Obviously, when you hear this word terminating, you understand that these are the ones that will stop after a certain value. For example, 5.3257. So after this 7, there is no value that we are talking about. It just stops here. So we will not have any further value after this. It stops here. That's the meaning of terminating decimal. These are some of the few examples: 0.25, 5.125, -23, 0.27, and so on, so on. Then the next one is non-terminating decimals. Obviously, you understand that they should not stop, they should just keep going on. And those non-terminating are further classified into two types. One is recurring decimals and one is non-recurring decimals. As the name suggests, recurring decimals, the simple identification for that is one of the digits or the pattern of the digits will keep repeating itself, infinitely. For example, this one 5.3257 bar, yani this 3257, 3257, 3257 will come on one after another infinite number of times, and that is the meaning of recurring decimal. One digit, one particular digit or the pattern of the digits will keep on repeating infinitely. That is recurring decimals. And the last one from this one is non-terminating and non-recurring. Obviously, non-recurring is a category of non-terminating, so they should not stop. But the meaning of non-recurring is that whatever digits that are repeating, they are not having any certain pattern or any of the relations between them. They are all random digits that are coming up, and there's no control as far as the value is concerned. So these are the ones they are called as non-terminating and non-recurring decimal. One very world famous example is the value of pi. We approximate for the calculation purpose to 3.14, but after that, if I'm not wrong, I had read recently somewhere that the scientists have figured out 100 digits after the decimal point, and they could conclude that there's no pattern whatsoever. They all are random digits. So these are non-terminating, non-recurring decimal. There's one small diversion is in between this classification where we straight away talk about decimal. But if you remember, we had left it at the integer part. And if you also remember, I'd also said something that integers are basically classification of rational numbers. So rational numbers can be further classified into two types, integers and fractions. And each of these integers and fractions are further classified into three different types altogether. So fractions, the first classification of fractions is proper fractions. Basically, numerator is less than denominator. The value will be less than 1. Obviously, numerator is less than denominator. These are a few of the examples. You realize the value is point to something, 0 point to something, as numerator is lesser than the denominator. The second type of fractions is improper fractions. Obviously, numerator is more than denominators, value will be greater than 1. Few examples: 7 by 3, 13 by 11, and so on, so forth. The third and the last category of fractions is something called as mixed fraction. Mixed fraction usually represented something like this: integer and a numerator and denominator. And when we consider some examples and when you simplify the value of any of the mixed fractions, what you ideally realize is, suppose this 2 1 by 3, when you simplify, you will do what? 2 into 3 plus 1, which will give you 7 by 3. When you realize this value 7 by 3 or 1 2 by 11 gives you 11, 13 by 11, when you simplify them, what you realize is this is not something new, but this is just another way of representing improper fractions only. If you remember, we have just now seen numerator is more than the denominator. So any of the mixed fraction, when you simplify further, you get the mixed fraction only. So the mixed fraction is nothing new as such as far as the type is concerned. It is just another way of representing improper fractions, and you can remember that. Then integers are further classified into three types: positive integers, negative integers, and zero. Obviously the names are sufficient, but still we will see them in detail. Negative integers: -4, -3, -2, -1, and so on. Zero as it is. Positive integers is 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Positive integers are further called as natural numbers. Zero and positive integers together, they are called as whole numbers. So I'm sure now you would be remembering some of these terms: natural numbers, whole numbers, and negative integers, and all of that from our school days. So that's how all the numbers are classified. We have seen literally each of the types to the detail, and knowing all these classifications and the terminologies and their respective meaning is very, very crucial to tackle the questions effectively. Otherwise, obviously, the mistake that most of the people do in terms of taking the wrong interpretation, because they are not very clear with what are the classifications of the numbers, and then they will goof up and they will definitely get a wrong answer. So be careful before you even start studying numbers. The first thing that you should be very thorough is this specific classification of numbers part. Now we are going to continue the same part, and we are going to see some new definitions of the numbers. The first one is prime numbers. Prime numbers, simple idea, they have just two factors, one and the number itself. For example, 2, 3, 5, 7, etc., etc. When you try and factorize, they will have only two factors. For example, 2 has just two factors, 1 and 2, and 5 and 3 also has just two factors, 1 and 3 and 1 and 5, that is 1 and the number itself. Whereas composite numbers, obviously simple wordings, more than two factors, example 4, 6, 8, 10, etc., etc., they will always have more than two factors. We are just having the same part in terms of the examples out of these, which are the primes and which are the composite. Obviously 7 and 13, they are the primes, the rest the three are composite numbers. How do we decide that? We will factorize, and when we factorize, you realize that 8 has 4 factors, 7 has just 2 factors, 13 also has just 2 factors, 9 and 20 has more than 2 factors. So more than 2 factors composite, only 2 factors prime numbers. That's the main idea. Then based on this, two quick notes. Note number 1 is related to number 1 itself, that 1 is neither prime nor composite. 1 is neither prime nor composite. Note number 2 is associated with number 2, that 2 is the smallest prime number and is the only even prime number. 2 is the smallest prime number and the only even prime number. We start the prime numbers from 2, and you will realize apart from 2 there is no other even number which is a prime number. So these are the two notes as far as these all things are concerned. Then continuing this further, few more definition. Even numbers. Numbers, the moment they see numbers, you are going to consider natural numbers. The moment we say natural numbers, we are only dealing with positive integers. So remember all these ideas. So even, which is basically divisible by 2. So even numbers यानी natural numbers which are divisible by 2. 2, 6, 14, 28, etc., etc. Then we will have even integers. The moment integers comes into the picture, we are going to vary the interpretation slightly. Positive, negative, both come into the play. So -2 plus 4, -4 plus 6, -6 minus 8 plus 18 minus 14, etc., etc. Divisible by 2 for the wordings even. As usual, we can have two varieties for odd as well. Odd numbers, natural numbers, positive integers which are not divisible by 2, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 13, 11, etc., etc. Odd integers, positive, negative, both which are not divisible by 2, -1, -3, -5, +1, +3, +5, etc., etc. The next part is operation on numbers. Operation on numbers is a classic thing wherein which we have the nature of the two numbers, odd or even, and based on that we are going to perform 4 operations: addition, multiplication, subtraction, and a raised to b powers part. And we are going to figure out what are the conclusions, what are the nature of those particular operations. So for example, let's start with the first scenario. Both the numbers are odd. When we add them, we get even. You can take some examples. For example, take 5 and 3. When you add 5 and 3, you get even as the sum. But when you change that up, for example, when you take first number as odd and second number as even, suppose 3 and 2, again when you add them, you will get odd result. Third scenario, first number even, second number odd, yani suppose 4 and 3. When you again add that, you will get odd as the result. And fourth and the last scenario, both the numbers are even. When you add them, you get the even conclusion. Similar kind of process has to be replicated for all the three applications as well. When you multiply, when you subtract, when you do a raised to b. Consider the examples. For odd, consider two odd numbers. For odd even, first number odd, second number even. For even odd, first number even, second number odd. And for even, you can have any of the two even numbers and apply the same process throughout, and you will easily get all these conclusions. So again, this is not something which is ekdam hard and fast, but if you remember, obviously it will be very, very helpful for you to realize this. There are 2-3 points that additionally we can make out from here, and listen to them very carefully. The first point is, if both the numbers are odd or both the numbers are even, if both the numbers are odd or both the numbers are even, then both their sum and difference is even. Then both their sum and difference is even. You can see that in the conclusion, both are odd, the sum is even. Both are odd, the difference is even. Or both are even, the sum is even. Both are even, the difference is also even. That's the first note. The second note is, if at least one number is even, then the product is always even. If one number is even, the product is always even. And the third note, which is related to a raised to b, which is that the nature of a raised to b is always dependent on the nature of a, the base. Because whenever a is odd, you would realize no matter what the power is, whether it is odd or even, the answer is always odd. And whenever the base is even, no matter what the power is, whether it is odd or whether it is even, the nature of a raised to b is always even. So from here we can easily conclude that the nature of a raised to b depends on the nature of a, which is the base, as long as it is not equal to 0. So these are some direct points which will come handy to you if you ever want to just have a quick recap of this third part, which is operation on numbers. The fourth part from this topic is a new idea called as relatively prime numbers, or we call it co-prime numbers as well. Simple definition: numbers which have only one common factor between them, they are called as relatively prime numbers or co-prime numbers. Numbers which have only one common factor. We can take some examples so that you realize in detail. Suppose 10 and 15, are they co-prime? The criteria is they should not have more than one common factor. So when we factorize each of the numbers individually, for example, when we factorize 10, we get the 4 factors as 1, 2, 5, 10. When we factorize 15, we get 4 factors, 1, 3, 5, 15. And now if I ask you how many common factors between them, you realize 1 and 5 are the common factors. Yani there are 2 common factors, which is more than one common factor, and that means this will not be co-prime because they have more than one common factor. This is the process that you are going to follow to check up whether the numbers are co-prime or not. Similarly, we can take another example. Suppose 13 and 20. Now 13 being a prime number will have only 2 factors, 1 and 13. 20 will have 6 factors, 1, 2, 4, 5, 10, 20. How many common factors between these two? Obviously just one common factor, which is 1 itself, and that means as far as the definition is concerned, they have to be co-prime. So this is how you validate the hypothesis that one common factor between the numbers, they are co-prime. This is the idea. Remember, this is going to be used frequently in the next few topics again and again for solving part, for the simplification part. So co-prime is a crucial idea. As usual, there are certain notes related to this that we can realize. So suppose there's a myth. Let's do some myth breaking or myth busters. For two numbers to be co-prime, at least one of them should be prime. Obviously it's a false statement. Don't get confused with the wordings co-prime and prime. That has nothing to do with the word prime, because co-prime is an entirely different idea which says one common factor. That has nothing to do with the prime numbers. For example, both of them can be composite number and they still can be co-prime to each other. Example 21 and 55, both are composite by their own nature because they have more than two common they have more than 2 factors when you factorize. But when you try and compare them to be co-prime, yes, they are co-prime because just one common factor between them. So the hypothesis is a false hypothesis. Both the numbers can be composite by their own individual nature and still can be co-prime. So don't get confused with the words prime. Co-prime and prime are entirely different ideas. That's the first point. The second point is two consecutive numbers are always co-prime, and we can prove that 6 and 7, for example. 6, when you factorize, the factors will be 1, 2, 3, 6. And 7, when you factorize, the factors will be 1 and 7. How many common factors? Just one. And that proves my point that two consecutive numbers are always co-prime. Note number 2 is related to number 1, which is number 1 is always co-prime with all the other numbers. Obviously, because 1 will always have just one factor, which is 1 itself. All other numbers, when you factorize, will have 1 as the factor, and when you compare, they will just have one common factor and they become co-prime to each other. So 1 is co-prime with all other numbers. Then continuing further, the next idea is converting recurring decimals to fraction. Very interesting observation as well. For example, 0.1 bar, which is basically 0.11111. Now, if you want, any such recurring decimal is there, which repeats one digit or pattern of digit continuously repeats. If you want to convert them to fraction, what is the theory? So 0.1 bar is 1 by 9, because 0.1 bar is 0.1111, which is 11.11%. 11.11% fraction you all know, which is 1 by 9. Similarly, suppose I want to do 0.2 bar, which will be 0.2222, which will be 22.22%, which will be 2 by 9. And the same cycle can be continued further for all such digits. 0.5 bar will be 55.55%, which will be 5 by 9. 0.4 bar will be 44.44%, which is 4 by 9. 0.8 bar will be 88.88%, which will be 8 by 9. 0.7 bar will be 77.77%, which will be 7 by 9, and so on. And the only reason to do all these examples is for us to again derive one small and important point, which is that if you ever want to recur one single digit, you always divide that digit by 9. So 1 को रेकर करना है 1 by 9, 8 को रेकर करना है 8 by 9, 4 को रेकर करना है 4 by 9, 7 को रेकर करना है 7 by 9, 5 को रेकर करना है 5 by 9. If you ever want to recur one single digit, divide that digit by 9. That's a very crucial and very small point that you have to remember. And we can apply that to some of the questions as well. For example, if you want to do 0.23 bar, यानी 0.23 recurring continuously, 23, 23, 23, and so on. As usual, we had just now seen, if you want to recur one digit, we have to divide that digit by 9. So similarly here we are recurring two digits, so we'll have to divide by 2 9s. That's all. So the answer to that fraction becomes 23 by 99, because we are recurring two digits and hence we are dividing by 2 9s. So this is how you convert a recurring decimal to a fraction. Similarly, 0.16 bar 16 by 99, 0.83 bar 83 by 99, 0.79 bar 79 by 99, 0.35 bar 35 by 99. Because we are recurring two digits, every time we are dividing by 99, and so on. Remember that idea. The last part from this is called as base system, and there are only few things that you should be aware of in this idea, which is how to convert. There are just two types of question: how to convert from a decimal base to any other base, and from some other base to decimal base. This is the only important conclusion that you should know, and the method for that. How do we do that? Let's very quickly take the example. So the first example that we are seeing is converting any number from any other base to the decimal base. Converting any number from any other base to the decimal number. And how do we do that? So for example, let's take a hypothetical number which is suppose 213 in base 4. 213 in base 4, that is in base 4. This suffix will tell you कि कौन से base में वो number है. This is in base 4 and we want to convert it to a decimal base. We want to convert it to decimal base. How do we do that? Obviously, let's convert. The process that you are supposed to remember is you are always going to go from right to left starting with even place digit. Even place में जो भी digit होगा वहां से start करना है. In this case it is 3 as the digit and जो भी base होगा, in this case 4 as the base, उसके power से multiply करना है always. So you have to go from right to left starting with the units place wala digit, and whichever is the base you have to multiply with those powers. So you can see the first term is 3 into 4 raised to 0. Always start with the 0th power. Then the next digit is 1 into 4 raised to 1 and the last digit is 2 into 4 raised to 2. Now what else that we can switch here is the digits will be different and the base might be different. Suppose it is of base 5, you are going to multiply with 5k powers. If the base is 8, you are going to multiply with 8k powers. That's the only change that you need to realize. You do this calculation, simplify this further, add everything, you get your answer as 32 plus 4 plus 3, which is 39 in decimal base. So 213 in base 4 is 39 in decimal base, and that is the answer. This is how you convert from any other base to the decimal base. The last variation in which that can be what? The exact reverse of the previous part, which is converting from decimal to any other base. Converting from decimal to any other base. Let's keep the example same so that we can confirm the bias. So suppose 39 in base 10 is what in base 4. We know that the answer has to be 213, but let's see how do we get this 213. So what is the process that you are going to remember is, if you are ever converting from a decimal base to any other base, whichever is the number in the decimal base, you are supposed to divide that number with the base in which you are wanting to convert it. So in this case, we are wanting to convert into base 4. So we are going to divide by 4. So we are going to divide 39 by 4. When you divide 39 by 4, you get quotient as 9 and the remainder as 3. Then you are going to continue the same process. Take the quotient of 9, again divide that by 4. You again get some quotient, some remainder. So when you divide 9 by 4, you get quotient 2 and remainder 1. And again when you divide the quotient 2 by 4, you get quotient 0, because obviously 2 is not divisible by 4, and remainder 2 as it is. And this is the important step, because the moment you get quotient 0, that is where you stop. So you have to keep on doing this process unless and until you don't get the quotient 0. So when you get the quotient 0, that's where you stop. And what else that you are going to do is just write down all the remainders in the reverse order from bottom to top, something like this. When you write the remainders in the reverse order, you get the same answer, that 39 in decimal base is 213 in base 4. And that's the conversion. That's how it works. So what else that can be variation here is, instead of asking you to convert into base 4, they might ask you to convert into base 6. So just going to divide by 6, and that's the only part that you are going to remember. So this is how you interconvert, interconvert from decimal to any other base and from any other base to decimal. Both the processes are different, so remember them very critically, and accordingly you can tackle your questions. So folks, that's it from classification of numbers part. A very long theory, lots of new things, some of the things from the school days that we had revised, basically the classification of numbers. Apart from that, the new things are co-prime numbers and the base system, and converting recurring decimals to fractions and all of that. If you have any concerns, do let us know. Thank you so much.